Okay, Mayor Rilling, we are live.
Good, thank you. Welcome, everybody. And I would like to call to order the January 26th, 2021 meeting of the Common Council. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to ask everybody to join me in a moment of silence. As you probably have heard of the passing of Mr. Curtis Law, who was the director for approximately 43 years of the Norwalk Housing Authority. He's also responsible for the development of their scholarship fund, which helped educate many, many young people who lived in the Housing Authority properties, and also the learning centers that they had for after-school learning and homework assistance, computer training for the young people, again, who lived on the Housing Authority properties. I'd also like to mention, and I know you all know this, that our dear friend and NAACP president, Brenda Penn Williams, lost her husband Keith last week. And so I'd like you to remember him in your thoughts and prayers, and Brenda, and also all the people that we've lost, not only in Norwalk, but around the country to COVID-19. So again, if you'll join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Clerk, if you'll please call the roll and read the statement.
This meeting is being recorded for rebroadcast. We ask everyone to speak clearly one at a time. Please state your name when called upon by the presiding chair. Members of the public can access this meeting by telephone, Zoom, and/or the City of Norwalk YouTube channel. There is a link with specific instructions at our norwalkt.org/meetings website. Mr. Burnett.
Present.
Ms. Johnson.
Present.
Mr. Langella.
Here.
Mr. Sacchinelli.
Present.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Huvelman.
Present.
Mr. Roberts.
Present.
Ms. Revolis. Yes?
Yes.
I don't
she's here.
hear. Ms. Young.
Here.
Mr. Kides.
Here.
Mr. Theodorides.
Here.
Mr. Keegan.
Here.
Mr. Sirenides.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
Ms. Shanahan.
Here.
15 present, you have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 12th, 2021. Do I have a motion? Ms. Revolus moves. Any corrections, deletions, omissions, additions? Mr. Keegan. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I did receive an email, I think everyone did, regarding some corrections that Miss Laura Cella would like made into the record. Do you want me to just read it, or how would you like me to?
I believe, well, you can read it, or you can send a copy to the stenographer, the minute taker, and could include it that way.
Okay,
As
I'll just read it. It's probably just easier. Ms. Lorcella stated that she was speaking as a member. I can't read. I must have been cut off. I'll send it to.
Okay,
the stenographer.
thank you. Any other corrections, deletions, omissions? I think we all received the email from Ms. La Rochella, so I believe that if there's any questions about the correction, that please ask. But there are seeing no further corrections. All in favor of the minutes as corrected? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public participation. Mr. Manzi, do we have anybody wishing to address the council?
Yes, we just have one person, Diane Lauricella. Diane, you could speak. Please unmute yourself, Diane. We cannot hear you. I'm sorry.
We're still not hearing Ms. La Rochella.
Yes. What I can do is promote her to panelist, and then once she's done, I'll return her back to an attendee.
Okay,
That's the only way that I believe we will get her to speak. Try that. No, we still cannot hear her.
right, well, while you're trying to remedy that situation, I'll ask any council person if they have any correspondence from any constituents that they would like to read into the record based on what's on the agenda for this evening. Ms. King, do you have anything from that, any correspondence that you have received?
I have nothing, Mayor.
Mr. Manzi, have you been able to correct that situation?
No, I even bringing her over in as a panelist did not work. She still cannot speak. The only thing I would recommend to her, if she can hear me, is get out and get back into the meeting, and that may clear up her audio issue.
All right, and in the interim period, we will continue with the meeting. We have no resignations or appointments for this evening. I did have a discussion with the city clerk this evening, and we'll be.
Hello?
Oh, she's back, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Hello?
Okay. Ms. La Rochella, you have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Now we can.
Okay, I'm sorry. I believe that Mr. Keegan, and I thank him for reading my memo or my request, and I do not know if it was voted on already. I was on another call at the same time, but the main reason I wanted to just mention clarifying that is because I feel that our solid waste program and reducing costs for the city is very important. Since it is part of, in the minutes, it's part of the agenda. part of the agenda. I just wanted to say that there are ways to reduce, and I still have not received a call from any of the staff from the Public Works Committee. So we'll talk again later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lauricella.
Hi. Hi, I'm sorry. You couldn't have.
Okay, we will continue on with the agenda. Just under the next item is mayor's remarks. As you know, tomorrow night, most of you have been made aware, and now for the public, we're having a town hall meeting that will be staffed by some people on this council, as well as people on the City of Norwalk staff. We will be discussing the city's efforts or continuing efforts with testing and vaccination administration. So it will be broadcast in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. We're trying to arrange for American Sign Language. I don't know if we've had success in arranging that yet. But anybody who wishes to ask questions or tune in and get the latest updated information relative to the city's efforts, the state's guidelines, et cetera, can tune in tomorrow night from 6:30 until 8 o'clock. Having said that, the City of Norwalk recently received 900 additional vaccines. We recognize the fact that the vaccine distribution coming in from the state is relatively slow because the state is getting a slow distribution from the federal government. We're hoping that we will be getting more. The last I knew from speaking with our director of health, we did have some appointments that were still available for our 900 vaccines. So if you want to get on the Vaccine Administration Management System, VAMS, you probably could still make an appointment. I don't have anything else, so I will turn it over to the council president, Mr. Sacchinelli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In interest of moving the meeting along this evening, I'm going to go straight to the consent calendar, which this evening is going to be read by Lisa Shanahan. Ms. Shanahan, the floor is yours.
Go. Item number 7A, 2A. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with the Norwalk Military and Veterans Liaison Committee for the use of Calf Pasture Beach for a remembrance event to be held on Sunday, May 16th, 2021 from noon until 2 p.m. Set up to begin Sunday, May 16, 2021 at 9 a.m. with tear down no later than 2 p.m. Estimated attendance, 100. 7A, 2B. Approve the use of the showmobile by the Norwalk Military and Veterans Liaison Committee for a remembrance event to be held on Sunday, May 16th, 2021 from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. 7A4. Technical correction, amend common, 7A3. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with the Norwalk Seaport Association for the use of Veterans Park for the Oyster Festival to be held on September 10, 2021 from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Saturday, September 11, 2021 from 11 a.m. until 11 p.m. and Sunday, September 12, 2021 from 11 a.m. until 8 p.m. Set up to begin Friday, August 27, 2021 at 8 a.m. with tear down no later than 5 p.m. on Sunday, September 19th, 2021. Estimated attendance, 30,000. 7A4. Technical correction, amend Common Council action of January 12, 2021, item 1B to correct account numbers from the two accounts that are noted. 7B, 2. For information purposes only, narrative on tax collections dated January 7th, 2021. 7B, 3. For informational purposes only, monthly tax collectors report dated December 2020. 7B, 4. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into agreements with Value Payment Systems, LLC, a sole source provider, T-Tech, LLC, and WorldPay US, Inc. for electronic payment processing services in support of Muni City online permits, inspections, fines, and fees for a period of 36 months in accordance with the terms and conditions set forth in the agreement. Account is noted. 7C1. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute all forwarding documentations required by HUD for the submission of the PY45 CAPER and approve the advancement of the PY45 CAPER to HUD. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. I'll take a roll call vote on the consent calendar as read. Mr. Greg Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Dominique Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Manny Langella,
Aye.
Nick Sacinelli, aye. Ms. Barbara Smith,
Yes.
Mr. David Huvelman,
Aye.
Mr. Kadeem Roberts,
Aye.
Ms. Diana Rivers,
Aye.
Ms. Darlene Young,
Yes.
Mr. John Kites,
Yes.
Mr. George Theorides,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. George Sirenides,
Yes.
Mr. Tom Livingston,
Yes.
Ms. Lisa Shanahan. It's unanimous. Mr. Mayor, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Sacinelli. Item 7A, 1A, and 1B, Ms. Young.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before we go into item 1A and 1B, I'd just like to make a statement about those two items and actually all of the events under Recreation and Parks. And so, this is the first time that this committee has approved events during COVID since the pandemic started, and we will continue to follow the same protocols while COVID remains an issue. And with that, we want to just make sure that the city, that everyone knows that the city of Norwalk reserves the right to cancel the event for public health or safety reasons as determined by the city of Norwalk in its sole discretion. The city of Norwalk shall not be liable for damages arising from any cancellation of events while we're going through this COVID. And so, we've made that statement at our committee to folks, and so they're aware of that. And this information as well will be included on contracts moving forward. And we really, the mayor and the city has been really following the state guidelines on COVID, and we will continue to do that as folks continue to come to Recreation and Parks for events. And that is what we need to do to keep everyone safe and to comply with the state protocols. And with that, I will read 1A. So 7A, 1A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with Norwalk Military and Veterans Liaison Committee for the use of Veterans Park for the Memorial Day Parade to be held on Monday, May 31st, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Set up to begin Monday, May 31st, 2021 at 7 a.m. and to tear down no later than 11 a.m. Estimated attendance 500. And 1B, approve the use of the showmobile by the Norwalk Military and Veterans Liaison Committee for the annual Memorial Day Parade to be held Monday, May 31st, 2021 from 7 a.m. to 11. Move that.
Ms. Young moved the item. Any
Yes.
discussion? All in favor? Signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. I believe next is it item 7A3? Was that on or off 7A3?
Consent, Mayor.
Okay. So next we have Mr. Burnett, item 7B1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 7B1, I'd like to move this item and have discussion, accept and approve the report of the Claims Committee dated January 14th, 2021. So I'll move that and move
Mr.
into
Greg,
discussion.
Mr. Burnett has moved the item.
And
Mr.
now
Burnett?
discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is, normally we have 2 claim items on this report this month that are over the $10,000 clip. And these are 2 items that are court stipulated reimbursements due to tax assessment appeals. And we have on the council meeting tonight, our tax collector, Lisa Biaggiarelli, along with our chief financial officer, Henry Dakowitz, as well as our tax assessor, Bill Ford. And Lisa will lead the discussion in terms of providing background on these particular items.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. As Councilman Burnett noted, all of our other refunds you don't have to vote on because they're under $10,000. That's our threshold. We do need an affirmative vote in order to process these refunds. One is for $25,719.02 for AGW Sono Partners LLC. The second is for $1.2 million for CP4 Waypoint BP1 LLC. Normally, what usually happens when these assessment appeal cases proceed, and William Ford can elaborate further on this, we are usually able to apply the credits that we owe the plaintiffs to future taxes, to future payments. In the case of the Waypoint property, that property has since been sold. So these, the monies that we owe them are from 2016 to 2018 grand lists, which are from prior years. And the property has sold in the meantime, and the taxpayers paid what they owed at the time. The case has since been adjudicated. There is a ruling by the court that was agreed to by the assessor, by the Corporation Counsel's office, by the judge, and by the plaintiff, by the taxpayer who appealed their assessment. The process is basically an oversight function for the council to approve this. But we thought it was necessary to come before you so that we could answer any particular questions you might have. I'm basically the process person, but Mr. Ford is the individual who actually went to court and dealt with the court. So I will turn it over to him.
So in the case of the Waypoint settlement, as Lisa said, the property did sell after the valuation date. And that sale, we made a determination that the court, if we let it go to a full trial, would have actually resulted in a lower number than what we had agreed upon. So we settled it with the petitioners, and then we received a sign off by the court to accept the settlement.
Are there any questions of any council members? Mr. Keegan.
Yeah,
You're
thank you,
still-
Mayor.
yeah, there you go.
And thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lisa, for explaining, and Mr. Ford for being here. And I understand that this assessment was done before your employment with the city. A lot of times we talk about spending, but we don't talk about revenue, and this is the revenue side of city government. So my question would be, are we taking steps to make sure that something like this doesn't happen, or if it does, that it's an unusual happenstance?
Well, sir, the revaluation that was performed for the 2018 grand list had over 400 cases filed. So we're going through those cases, and we are taking ones to trial that we believe that there's no basis for a reduction. And if certain information is incorrect in the system, we're making adjustments and negotiating with the property owners. So we don't anticipate a large number of these high number cases. Many of the cases that we're settling are $200,000 in assessment. We did one the other day. It was a reduction of $200,000 in assessment. When that boils down to actual tax dollars, it's not very significant.
If I could just provide
Mr. Capola?
Sure, if I could provide just a little bit of context as well, aside from my work in assisting with the tax appeal defense work in Norwalk, Brian McCann does do the majority of our tax appeal defense work. Just to give you some perspective, I'm in charge of all the tax appeal defense work for a lot of the surrounding communities: Westport, Weston, Wilton, New Canaan, Easton. I do all the major cases for Trumbull, which are there's a few properties that are over $100 million of value. In particular, I do a lot of the high value cases in Fairfield County, and for the higher value cases, this is a result that you do see quite often, where when you make a change, it results in a significant tax savings. So just to give you an example, this is $1.2 million in tax savings. I just settled a case for another community literally this morning, and it resulted in a tax savings of almost exactly $1.2 million over a 5-year period. So this is, for the bigger cases, kind of par for the course. You don't see it as often because it doesn't come before you, because quite often what is the process, not just in Norwalk, but in most other communities in Connecticut, is we issue a credit. So it doesn't have to come before the legislative body for approval. But the manner in which we resolve the cases is similar to the way we handle the cases, the way these cases are handled in other communities. Quite honestly, in Norwalk, I think we probably do a more extensive defense quite often of the appeals. We do have the benefit of having in-house counsel that's not billing by the hour. So we do have some advantages in Norwalk in the system that we have. But I guess the comment Mr. Ford made about there's a lot of cases we resolve maybe a couple $100,000 on an assessment. There are a lot of cases where there's reductions of millions of dollars in assessment because it's a property that may be worth 50 million or 100 million or 20 million, whatever it may be. And so in Norwalk, we have a significant number of appeals, but the reason why is we have a significant number of commercial properties in comparison to other communities in Fairfield County.
Thank you. Any further question? Okay, Mr. Dakowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Keegan, I would just add about the financial planning and impact of these adjustments. So when we look at the revenues, as you indicated, the largest source of revenues are our taxes, primarily real estate, but also automobiles, vehicles, and personal property. When we establish the budget, we establish a collection rate assumption on the assumption that we are not going to collect all of the taxes. We have a very good record of collecting taxes historically. With COVID, we reduced the estimated collection rate on the assumption that it was unknown and we might collect less in taxes. Lisa and I monitor that weekly. I just got the report for 47 weeks since March of 2020, and we monitor that very carefully. When it comes to the tax challenges, I'll call them, whether they go before the Assessment Review Commission and board, or whether they end up in litigation. First of all, we have to remember there's a 5-year cycle. It starts with the revaluation. So the first 2 years after revaluation, we have the most number of cases challenged. And as Mr. Ford indicated, we make, he and the legal department jointly make a determination. Are we in error? Do we think the claimant is wrong? Are we going to go to litigation? Are we going to try to settle? And they make those determinations. Even when it's determined that there's a reduction, the vast majority, and I'm going to say 80 to 90%, are handled prospectively on a credit basis. So what happens is it affects the grand list in future years. So from a budgetary point of view, it doesn't affect our current year. It might be uncollected, and in the future, it will be made up by a lower target, and we just incorporate that in future budgets. There are times, however, when we have to make a payment, as in this case. There was a prior owner, they overpaid, they do not currently pay taxes, therefore we have to cut a check. We, in the first 2 years of the cycle, we put a reserve of $3 million each year on the assumption that we may have cases where we have to distribute cash. I check those numbers with Mr. Ford to make sure he feels, based on the review of the litigation, it's adequate. Normally in the third year, historically, we've dropped that to $1.5 million. What we are proposing for this coming year, which is year 3 of the 5-year cycle, we're going to keep it at $2.5 million, just because he inherited 400 cases. And we just want to make sure that the budget is protected. So if you think about it, it starts with a revaluation. The assessments that are now controlled by Mr. Ford will have the challenges, the litigation. It may affect our collection rates, which we are buffered for with a collection assumption in our budget. And then lastly, we have a reserve in case we have to write a check to compensate. Years 4 and 5, we usually have smaller amounts for that as well. So that's how the assessment and legal fold into the financial. And so far, I believe the budget has not been impaired beyond those reserves and collection ratios.
Ms. Biaggiarelli, I see your hand raised.
May I please, thank you, Mayor. May I please just add one other point, and that is that when we report to you every month, our collection reports that you receive from our division always show collections net of refunds. So any refunds that we are giving, any credits that we're giving, we adjust our levy and we adjust our collection rate accordingly, so that you are constantly getting from us numbers that are changing, but they are updated. If I'm explaining it properly, so that you're seeing these changes, these credits, these refunds that we process, just as you're seeing when someone adds to their property and we issue an adjusted bill to collect more than we originally thought. We're always giving you updated figures that are true figures net of all of the adjustments that we have. So if these refunds were processed and you saw, you would see a dip, or you would see a change to our collection rate right at the month that happened. So as the CFO mentioned, we are monitoring things like this, but this is not an unusual situation. It's a bit unusual in terms of the dollar amount. But if you think of it in terms of equity, if a taxpayer is able to challenge their assessment and they take the city to court and they come to an agreement with the city, it's basically a matter of equity where we are obliged to honor the decision of the court. And that is what makes taxation fair and equitable for everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Biaggiarelli. Any further questions? Mr. Keegan and others, just so you know, during our recent cabinet meeting, I did mention that I'm interested in knowing the trend on successful tax appeals, and looking primarily at the larger tax appeals and finding out if there was any common denominator, so to speak, so that we know that we can look at this in the future, because quite frankly, in another 2 years, well, another 1 year now, I believe there's another tax sale coming up. I'm sorry, a reval coming up within the next couple of years. So we're looking to see if there's any trends and why we've had so many tax appeals this year, and some of the larger appeals that might have been successful. So seeing no further discussion or questions, Ms. King, would you take a roll call vote on item 7B1?
Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Langella,
Aye.
Mr. Sanchonelli,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Huvelman,
Aye.
Mr. Roberts,
Aye.
Ms. Revolis,
Aye.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Kites,
Yes.
Mr. Theodorides,
Yes.
Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Cyrenides,
Yes.
Mr. Livingston,
Yes.
Ms. Shanahan,
Yes.
15 yays. It's unanimous.
Motion passes unanimously. Do we have any other motions?
Motion to adjourn.
Who is that?
Nick,
Okay, the council president has made a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
good night, everyone.
Good night.